Hello and hey, this is Light on the Trail podcast. On this special episode, I was lucky enough to get an interview with the owner and race director of Texas Outlaw Running, also one of the hosts of the Texas Outlaw podcast. He's a solid guy. We had a great conversation, some laughs on the way, but we also get into some deep things. It was just a wonderful conversation, talking back and forth. I hope you have an ear for this. I hope you enjoy it. I sure did. It was great. So, without any further ado, here is Briston Rains.
So a week later, I drove up to this mountain in North Arkansas, just really searching for the truth.
Alrighty, guys. So I'm here with Mr. Briston Rains. Not only an awesome name, but an awesome guy.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, dude. That's do you get that a lot?
I actually, yeah, believe it or not, I do. I think 2 days ago at the Fire Trail Running Festival, someone was like, one of the volunteers, they were like, "That's a cool name."
Is that really your name? Yeah.
I actually have 4 names, believe it or not. It's Briston, Riley, Andrew, Rains. So,
Dude, that's sweet. Nice, man. Yeah, well, that's a great start then. I was going to ask you about that. Well, go ahead if you want to introduce yourself. What do you run with Texas Outlaw Running and everything, and kind of how's that?
So, yeah, my name's Briston Rains. I grew up and lived in Gainesville, Texas my whole life, and I went to college at Southern Arkansas University, where I just graduated. And during my time, I started Texas Outlaw Running Company, which is what I do full time now. And I'm the race director and owner of Texas Outlaw Running Company. I'm also I have another little side business called Rockwell Media, where I do marketing for churches, and I create like the content and post for them. And so I do that. I'm a husband. I got married like last year to my beautiful wife, Carly. And I hope I'm not missing anything. But yeah, and obviously, which this passes me up sometime, I'm a Christian. I'm a pretty dedicated follower of Christ. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, I'm quite the the go getter, I guess is the easy way to put it, and that's what I picked up. If you listen to Texas Outlaw Running podcast, or if you don't, you should. But that's something that kind of, and I mentioned it to you, kind of inspired me to kind of really launch this podcast. Is that you just kind of break out and be like, "Yep, gotta thank goodness for God and Jesus, and I'm so happy for that." And that what should I do in this situation? And like, it's like, hey, man, that's like refreshing to say the least, And I was like, I like that. And I was kind of going through nothing bad, but I was a little bit of a spiritual kind of journey. I work with a church at the moment, but it's been a weird, not really weird. It's just, I didn't know how it was going to be until I started working there. And when you're working at church, it's not the church that we were going to. So I don't get to be with my family, and I have a wife and 2 kids. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'll see how this works out. So I've been there a couple months, and although it's a great opportunity and cool to be in that, and I was thinking maybe that's where maybe God led me to that, so I wouldn't regret it later, to think like, oh, I never got to work at that church and feel bad about it. So he wanted me to let me get a feel for it and see, like, but I want you to be with your family and be a dad and a husband with them in church and how it's supposed to be. So that's kind of where I am now. But I kind of
Yeah.
do pretty much like a broadcast assistant at that church, because they have like a little podcast and media stuff they do and stuff. So that's kind of been my goal. But yeah, since we're on the topic, I usually talk about scripture I've read recently or something I've thought.
Yeah.
And with having you on here, and I know you again you're proud to say anything about the good book. I was like, oh man, we're going to talk about the person that haven't had like kind of a back and forth about this with a guest. I've interviewed my other buddy who loves your races, and we've talked about it, Will. But
Yeah.
so you mentioned this was really, I was like, well, I have to talk about this because this was really, really cool. You had, I guess I would say, disgruntled customers that were essentially trying to like sue you for what's it called? Not false advertising, but making them look bad, defamation or
Yeah.
whatever.
Defamation. Yeah.
Defamation, you're right, of character. And you pretty much turned right to it. But in Matthew, when it talks about if you're being sued, if they want your shirt, give them your shirt and your coat.
Yeah.
I think it's where I wrote it. Yeah, Matthew 5:40. And it's on that the same passages where it says really the phrase "turn the other cheek" comes from. Before that, it mentions, someone wants to slap you in the cheek, show them your other cheek. Someone wants to sue you for, give them your shirt and your coat. If someone
Right.
makes you run a mile, run two. Just
Yeah.
be giving, and almost that stuff doesn't matter. Almost if you have God anyway, if you're following Jesus, and then the next part goes right into the love your enemy and your neighbor, pray for your enemy, pray for the things we get better. So I was like, dude, this guy's trying to run his business. Um, and he considered that, at least, right? He brought it into his business, which is
Yeah.
the best foundation, and was like, I should take, what would Jesus do? Which is an undersaid statement, right? It's been like on bracelets and stuff forever, but really, if you just like take a second, what would Jesus do? Like, oh man, he'd give him his coat too. All right.
Yeah, dude.
uh,
I think that's been like a battle for me personally because like I want to serve God, but I also want to, pursue my business because I'm passionate about business and running and I want to do that. And so that's been a battle because it's like whenever I first came to God a few years ago, I was like kind of thinking to myself, okay, like to follow God, does that mean to drop everything and just like follow him and like just preach and that's it? And yes and no. Like yes, like when you have that moment where you decide to follow Jesus, it says it in the Bible, you have to be willing to leave and drop everything for him, which I am willing to do. If he told me today to sell Texas Outlaw or to stop putting on races, I would. But at the same time, uh, he calls you to go out and preach and do all that. And like, and for those who aren't believers that are listening, I want you to put yourself in my shoes just for a second. Just imagine there's this almighty, powerful God, creator of the universe, and you decide, you find out about this God, and He is the one true, real, living God that created you, and He loves you, and He died for you. Okay, put yourself in that perspective. It's like, okay, I want to serve that God. Like I want to do what He wants me to do because He knows everything. He has the best plans for me. And so during that time, I was like, does he want me to be an evangelist, a preacher? And I believe God has called me to be an evangelist, which is just sharing the word of God. But He also hasn't told me to lay down Texas Outlaw. Um, and like, there's been several times where at races or with people, we'll be talking, and God will just get brought up. I don't even bring it up, and we have pretty good spiritual conversations out there. And like, just a few days
yeah,
ago at the fire trail, um, I got to talk with um, this person about God, and they were a Christian, and it's really cool to see. And I think if anything, the trail running community needs Jesus more than anything because that's where we find the most people that are um, slaves to their struggles and that are trying to escape through running. When ultimately the only thing that will fully, truly satisfy is Jesus and God. So
yeah. Hallelujah, man. Yeah, amen. That's awesome. You kind of got like feet on the ground if you're out there putting on the race, and people are like, "Oh, this is the guy who runs it." Oh, it's, so cool to meet you. Like now, like I'm happy to talk to you about it. But that's kind of what I thought with this podcast too. Was man, I'm really inspired. I used to do a lot of running, and I stopped for a little bit,
yeah,
and getting back into it this year, and I just like I'm gonna do it. Like I wanted to get back into recording and all that stuff, and I was like, this feels great, and and it kind of worked out too. Before I started this, like I fasted, and that was my first time fasting as well, and like for that reason, to like it's as little as like you were kind of saying, if there was, or I'm going to say was, but if you were thinking like, is there a God, or is there someone who, surely someone created this, and you
yeah,
kind of, that's the first step to it. And I've heard someone put it to me like, every step you take that way, is huge. And then when you get there, stay in line, and it's hard. And that's kind of where, faith comes in, and doesn't, don't say it'd be easy, but, um, with this podcast, that's what I, hope to, like, if it's just this conversation right here and somebody stumbles across this, and like, I'm from Texas. Oh, I've heard of that racing company. And
yeah,
it's like, man, that's a good word. Cause I know for me, I, getting into running, I was already a Christian and believer and everything. It's like my pray time, my meditation when I get out there running in the trails and it's like in the nature and it's all pretty and it's just like I love it. I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful I have these legs underneath me. That's usually what I say. Thank you for the air in my lungs and the legs underneath me to do this and be, just have it. And I was running with my daughter. It's been maybe a month. It was a fun run. So there was a 5K going on. They did like a 1 mile fun run, and she's 8, and she doesn't. They don't understand like pacing. She's like, it's a race, so we're gonna sprint. She took off, and I was like, no, slow down. I'm like putting my arm in front of her to slow her down, and she starts getting a side stitch and
Yeah.
everything. I'm like, this pace, like this is like slow down. And she's kind of like me. She doesn't seem competitive. It took me a long time to understand that I was competitive, but in a good way. Like I think it's good cause it makes me want to do better. But and she started kind of crying and wanted to stop and breathe on the way back. And I was like, I was getting choked up, and I started like, there's little kids that can't do this right now. Like you should feel so grateful you can do this. And like, look where, me and you are running together. There's some kids in wheelchairs, all that. And I was like, oh man, oh God, like choking up. And I was like, and I've had like, that's a good, experience. And just to share that with her. And I was like, man,
Yeah.
this is great. So just being like appreciative and everything, but it's very special. And like you said, I think there are some people out there that are lost, to say unquote, when they look into running, because running is such like can be very spiritual and like moving meditation, is how I've heard it put too.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of searching, and they kind of need that. But I think it's a great, so thank you for bringing that into what you do. And again, just kind of joining me here, man. It's super cool.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you having me on and also creating this podcast because I've always thought it would be really neat to create, or if there was a Christian running combo of some kind of whatever, whether
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
running company or like like I think like a Christian running T-shirt would be sweet, like something that involves Christian running. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And I'm starting to see some more, which again, I think refreshing is a good word. It's starting to come up, and thankful to those pioneers, or even what we're doing right now, just spreading the word and making it grow and be less of a big step for the next person to be like, I'll be the only Christian fitness person out there. I'm like, well, no, now there's these things and these things and all that. So it's a good,
yeah,
building that army to say. Um, but yeah, super. Again, I want to say super cool is like underrated, but greatness, amazing. How and I don't know. I was gonna. You're like, how old are you? Sorry,
21.
21. Okay, I was just like, I think he's like 20. Um, so yeah, and I've had longer to deal with this stuff, right? And you're already, I would say, an entrepreneur. So I didn't know you had a like a media kind of side. Um,
Yeah.
that's great. So when did you start? How young are you? I think it's about 3 years old or so. But yeah, when did you start it and why? And when did you like? Is that the same time you got involved in running and like loving it and all that?
Yeah. Um, I think it's good to have some good context before I just flat out say, I did this, this, and that, because the context is what made that other stuff happen. Is a ripple effect. But since I was a kid, and really when I started becoming a teenager, I was really interested in creating things. So, like in middle school, I can remember I had the dream of owning like a big video game company that codes and makes video games like EA Sports, and I was really into like coding video games. Um, and going into high school, I started like a t-shirt company and just these different things, and I had different entrepreneurial ventures. And around that time, I found this guy who had a huge impact on my life, and his name was Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk is a marketer. He owns VaynerMedia. It's a multi-million dollar company, like $200 million company. And he created content on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, I was watching his stuff for like a year or two straight. And it motivated me and really, I found other guys like David Goggins and all these other people, and it inspired me. It made me realize that we got this one life here on earth. And, if we're on our deathbed, what are we going to say to ourselves when we die? And so I had that perspective, and in a way still do. I had that perspective, and that kind of grounded a part of my foundation. At the same time, I was also just mediocre. I was the slowest, weakest kid on my team, middle school, high school, and I just kind of looked at my life and I was like, I want to do something greater. So I decided I was going to do either basketball or cross country. So I kind of flipped a coin a bunch of times, but I went with my gut and went with running.
Oh
I went
wow.
all in. And during this time, I had stumbled across a YouTube video of these guys running 50 miles in the mountains here in the US. It was a documentary. I went down this rabbit hole of ultra and trail running documentaries, and I fell in love with it. And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
started signing up for my first trail runs. I did my first marathon at 16 years old, but it was a trail marathon. It was called the Red River Trail Run back in like 2018, and they don't do that race anymore. But the year we ran it, it had been raining for a week straight.
God.
I hadn't never done a trail run prior to that. Maybe I might have done one, but so I didn't really know what to expect. I did all my training on road and everything,
Right, right.
and that race ended up being 6 to 12 inches of mud the whole time. People were dropping like flies. Like, not a lot of people finished that race. A lot of people got lost. They were sending out dirt bikes to find people.
Holy cow.
Mile 18, I was puking my guts out, couldn't keep anything in. Um, and I pushed through and finished that thing. And like that started like the foundation of like the beginning of my running. And really, all that running um, really taught me a lot of discipline, which carried out into my life now. But going back to the high school part, I had a goal of I wanted to be a professional trail runner, ultra runner. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to go to Western States, do all that. And again, this is about 2018. So I kind of went all in. I went in all in across country because in order to get that big goal, the alpha goal, I had to set beta goals. And so the first goal, run a sub 18 5K or whatever it was, go to college and run, go to this qualifier, run this, right? I had it set out, and all I had to do was just follow it according to plan. So that's what I did, and I trained every single day from my junior to senior year. My junior year, I was working a bunch of jobs, and I was working like 12-hour shifts, getting like 6 hours of sleep, and then waking up super tired, but forcing myself to go run anyways. And I did that every single day during the summer. Senior year comes, the hard work didn't pay off. I stayed the same speed. I continued to put in the hard work though, because I had two choices. I could give up and try something else, or I could keep going. And I'm glad I kept going. I kept going, and I trained every single day, and I kept that discipline, dude. I remember I would wake up and be so tired because I would have worked. I worked all day. I was a lifeguard at the One Star Casino up in Oklahoma. Um, and you sit there all day and you walk around and you do stuff, but you're tired, dude. You're in the hot sun all day.
Yeah.
And it is hard work, dude. And no breaks, maybe one 30-minute break, but you're out 8 hours working parties. You're standing all day. So anyways, I'm tired, dude. But I push through, bro. I do it anyways because I know that nobody else is doing it. So I know if I do it, I can do something special. So senior year comes, I end up running really fast times, fast for me, and kind of in Texas really, and nothing too crazy. And then I go and I email like 40, 50 different college coaches, and I found Southern Arkansas University. It met all my expectations. It was a Division II. It had the degree I wanted. It was super cheap and affordable. And so I talked with the coach, and he was down, had a signing day. And that was one of my trophies in life of like, I put in the work, I worked hard, I didn't give up, and it paid off. And that, but little did I know, that ended up turning into me starting Texas Outlaw Running, me getting married to the woman I'm going to live with for the rest of my life, finding my faith in Christ and forever changing my life. But it all started whenever I was 16 and I decided that I was going to go all in on running. And it was a one moment thing. I thought about it and I just did it and I stuck with it. And it all started from then. So, but getting back to like how I started Texas Outlaw Running, I remember going into my freshman year of college, I was running During the summer, I would run with group runs with Team Dirt and Vert up near North Dallas area, like McKinney area. And one of the guys asked me, I think his name's Kieran, I think that's how you pronounce it. He asked me, he was like, "What do you want to do, you know, after you graduate?" And I told him I was going to go to college, and I told him that I wanted to do something like either race directing, coaching. I wasn't really sure. Freshman year of college comes, and I am in class. I was in my microeconomics class, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, this thought of a running company came to my head, and I was writing down names while he was lecturing, and I wrote down a bunch of different names, and then I walk over to my dorm room, and I put my key in my door, and as soon as I do, this whole company idea comes. At the time, it was Texas Devil Running Company, believe it or not. That was the name originally, Texas Devil Running Company. And it was races, content, coaching, and apparel, all in one company. I wanted it to be a one-stop shop for running. So I wrote it down. I still have the notebook. I wrote down everything in the notebook. And hopefully you can't hear that back there. Do you hear it?
No.
Okay, good. Um, and so anyways, I'm writing down everything down, and I take that discipline from running and I put it towards this company. And so like I didn't go out to any social events. My life was strictly running, business, or running, school, business. And the business was this, and this was it, and I was all in. So literally what my days would look like is I had this mirror in front of me in my dorm room, and I had sticky pads, notepads, and I would put these little sticky notes on there with everything I had to do, and I would put all my schoolwork on Monday and Tuesday, and then um, everything else I would dedicate towards working on the business. And so I would have like practice, and when I would wake up, I'd go to practice, and then I would come back and take that sticky note off, and it was literally like I was like a machine. Like my mind during that period was like a machine. Um, I did not go outside of that schedule. So like I would finish all my homework Monday, and then Tuesday I would force myself to create and work from after practice, after school and all that, going to classes. And I would force myself to do that till 10 o'clock at night. And so I would be working on stuff for 8 to 10 hours every single day. And I did not go outside that. I maybe had a few rest hours just to kind of celebrate the work I put in. But I would get invited to, events, hanging out with people. And every now and then I would go, like, I would be like, okay, I'm going to go out this evening, and I would go do whatever and hang out with people. But I was like a robot, man. Um, and that ultimately set the foundation. That's where I created my website. That's where I created the races I have now, the big ones, Chupacabra, East Texas
Yeah,
Ultra,
yeah.
um, the really big races. So I, uh, I started that, and my first race was going to be in my hometown, Gainesville, called the Cook County Patriot 5K. And so it's my only road race I really have.
You started with the
Um,
5K?
yeah, started with a
Nice.
little 5K. I was 18 years old at the time, and I remember I put flyers all out. We probably had 75 people.
Hey,
No,
hey.
maybe it was like 50 people, 50 to 75 people, somewhere around there. And I looked at what other people were doing to figure out what to do. Um, and I created that race, and we ended up putting it on. And I remember being so excited that like I was able, because we had like a little bit of leftover profit.
Right,
I
you're
was
like,
able to
"Oh,
like take
holy
some money
cow." Yeah.
and buy. Yeah, I was able to like, I didn't pay myself, but I was able to take money and like buy a tent. Like that was big for me. Um, and so the next race after that was my first trail race I put on, called the Chupacabra. How I knew how to put on a race was because I would go and I would look at other companies and what they were doing. So, like Trail Racing Over Texas, uh, Vipa, the race director there, Jamil Curry, he has a YouTube video on day in the life of race directing. That's how I figured out what to use for course signage. What kind of tents do you use?
Nice.
What all do you need at the aid station for people to get through? And I would look at Trail Racing Over Texas, and I would zoom in, and I would go back to old photos. I would see, what did they start with for their start and finish line? Oh, they had two metal poles on a backdrop banner and a their sign
Yeah,
up
yeah,
there,
right. Just what they could do. Yeah.
right? And I plugged it all in together, and that's how I figured out what to do. And my first trail race was a Chupacabra 50, and it was a 50K. I think we had 30 people. And I broke even on that race, but I was able to buy like another tent,
Yeah.
some ice, some water coolers,
The gears are moving. You got like progression going and
yeah,
getting into it. And yeah, I bet it was exciting. Yeah.
I was able to get 2 more tables. And keep in mind, like I was excited in the creation experience and creating something and being in something that I'm passionate about and love. And I was able to impact other people's lives. And it was just fun. And honestly, at the time when I started it, yeah, it's a company, it's for profit. But at the time, it was just fun to do. And I I did races in months when I wasn't in school. That's the only time I could do them. So in a way, school was restricting. But man, I was just having fun with it. It was like a hobby to me. And so I put on a couple races, dude, and uh, I put on races again last year for a second time. And during that time, I was living in a house in Fayetteville. So me and a couple cross country buddies decided to get a house in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is beautiful. It's Ozark Mountains and all that.
Oh, wow.
So we decided to move there and live there for 3 months. So I was part-time lifeguard, um, but really full-time. And then I was also doing Texas Outlaw races. And um, then again, I was, just grinding, same discipline, same grind mode. Um, and I decided, I was like, okay, if we want to go all in, like if I'm going to grow this thing, I needed more races. So that's where I created a bunch of races like Noche, like the Fire Trail Running Festival, all these summer races. And that's where I created them, where they all kind of started, was from my kitchen table in our
Yeah.
Airbnb monthly rental that we were in. And I would just work days and days on these
Right.
things. Any free time I got, I was working on the race. I
Because you
was
were
working
passionate
on,
about it. You wanted to do that. It was right fun
yeah,
for you. It's your baby. Yeah.
it was easy. It was easy to do. It wasn't hard. But there was times where it would hit me like, man, this sucks. But I would like blast music and just get to work. Um, and I would grind that out, and that just kind of carried over and turned into what it is now. And um, right before, about middle of my first semester of college, when I was a freshman, I was in search of the truth. I wasn't sure about life in the world, and I wanted to know kind of what was next. I was going to this one ministry for our college campus, and I would hear them preach, and I would just think in the back of my head, why are they not telling me how they know God's real, how they know the Bible's accurate? And I would get kind of upset with them in my head. And I would just look at them and just be like, why aren't you like you got this mythical God figure? Why? And you're not telling me how he's real. So how do you expect me to like believe or even grow and start? And so
Right. Right.
I went on this journey of searching for truth. And I went first with the resurrection of Jesus. And I found out, he had hundreds of witnesses. The moment he died, his faithful followers ran away and fled because they were scared. And then after he resurrected, supposedly, they went from hiding and scared to confident and all dying for their faith. And none of them said, "Oh, it's just a lie. We were just kidding." Oh, you know, we just all decided to say that
Right. Right.
he rose from the dead, and we're gonna stick with like they all died gruesome deaths. One was pelted by rocks to death. One was
Hmm.
sawed in half, I want to say, and then one was crucified on the cross upside
Upside
down.
down. Yes,
And
sir.
their dying breath was
Like we're not
their
lying.
their
Like,
last word. Yeah,
yeah.
their last words were, Jesus rose from the dead. And that made me realize this person rose from the dead. He is God. Only a God could say, I'm going to rise from the dead in 3 days, die, and then rise from the dead in 3 days. If 300 people came in and stabbed me, no problem. Judge would rule, yeah, you got stabbed. That's plenty of proof. 300 witnesses witness Jesus rising from the dead and interacting with him and touching him and eating with him and him physically being there and then him ascending into the heavens
Right, right.
and it's all recorded. And then you say, oh, okay, well, what about the Bible? Is the Bible accurate? And you go and you look into the Bible and you realize that it's the most accurate ancient manuscripts that we have on earth. We have more proof that Jesus exists than Plato. And the figure of this book who was preaching in a small town, who was born in very humble beginnings, he impacted the world and he has the most books written about him. He has the most impact on the world out of any figure in the entire earth. And so I found out the validity of the manuscripts. I really dug. I really looked into it. And then it made me look, okay, this thing's real. Okay, what about Catholicism, or like what are you supposed to
Oh,
follow?
right, right.
And so I looked into all that, and I quickly realized that God was real. And then I was confronted with a question. Someone said, Briston, you know, you have to choose God or the world. You can't have both, because I was hanging on to both. And in that moment, I realized that I had friends, music, ways I was living that I would have to give up in return for the kingdom of God, serving the creator of all things and having him in my life. So a week later, I drove up to this mountain in North Arkansas, just really searching for the truth. And I was on this mountaintop and I just felt the peace of God come over, and I felt absolute peace. And I was like, there, I knew the evidence was all in God's favor and that he was real and that he was here. And so in that moment, I gave him everything. I gave him the way I talked, because I used to cuss a lot. Not like a lot, but I would cuss,
Gotcha.
I would cuss. I was listening to music that was not of God, that was talking about living in this lifestyle
Sinful
that doesn't
ways and
glorify God. Um, I I gave up, talking to all these girls and all that, and I gave up my entire lifestyle. And in that moment, I realized I did what I had to do and that I gave it all to God. I was shortly baptized. I was baptized shortly after, and ultimately, what had happened in my life is I came to realization of this God, and it forever changed my life. But I was no longer a slave to my struggles. The chains were taken off my feet, and I was no longer bound or struggled to them. And obviously, after that, I still had falls. I still had temptations. I still have like even now I have
humanity.
temptations.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like now I can say, like, I'm not perfect. I people say that and they don't give full context. You are perfect if you're in Christ, because Christ is perfect. And so we're not technically perfect, but we are in Christ because his blood
Yeah.
covers everything. But like, I don't fall into sin anymore on purpose, because I fear God, because I acknowledge that he's real. He's the almighty God. If I go against him and rebel, then um, I I have his wrath is upon me. That's just
Right.
as plain as it is. But at the same time, which is amazing, I had a period where I had kind of fallen away from God after that. He still loved me and took me back, because the parable of the lost son, where the son runs away and he's living in filth after just being in glory with the father. He runs away and then he comes back, and then the father, which is God, embraces him. He's like, my son is back. Give him the best meal, a golden ring. And that's what it was kind of like for me, because I had kind of fallen back away from God. I kind of lost my faith a little bit. I had fallen back into sin about a year into this all. And then I came back, I bounced back, and I still struggled. I still, struggled with
Yeah.
certain things. But ultimately, God ended up setting me free from all those. And now it's just little things, man. Little things that I feel like God's correcting me on. But back to the main story here. That
I think
happened,
that's
man.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that moment happened my freshman year. I was adding more races, and then ultimately I kind of felt convicted. The name of the company was Texas Devil Running Company,
I
and
have
I
that written
decided,
down. I was going to ask you when I was doing my due diligent research, and I was
yeah,
going through your YouTube and stuff, and I was like, oh, he's been grinding literally, and like what you're talking about on this episode. Today's Monday, but this will come out a week later or so. But you and Asher were talking about like grinding and getting after it, but you have to give yourself that time and like space to do stuff. But I was going back and looking, and I was like, oh, this is 2 years later, and then I noticed that the logo said Texas Devil Running, and I was like, that is interesting because I know
yeah.
the man, will say some good words, and praise God. And I I bet he changed it because he was like, man, I can't have the word devil in my company name.
That's exactly what happened, man. I was like, which my mom told me from when I started it. She was like, "You got to change it," and she ended up being right, as moms are, most of the time. So yeah, man, I ended up changing it, and I was playing around with the names, but Texas Outlaw I think sounded the best, so I stuck with it, and
Yeah, I dig it.
so now it's been like that. Literally, I want to say I changed it. It was pretty early on when I changed it too, man. I think it was before the Chupacabra race I changed it. Maybe it was after, like my first one. But I changed it in 2020, 2021. I
Okay.
changed it. I started it in 2020. I changed it in 2021, and it's gonna be like that for forever. So, um, yeah, and so uh, now
Now here
that
we
I'm
are.
graduated,
Yeah.
yeah, now that I'm graduated, I have time to put on more races, and um, so I have a race every month that I've decided that I'm going to do a race every month, the second Saturday or the second weekend of every month, and I'm gonna stick with that. But something that I've picked up on and learned is that was great for my foundation. And you've probably heard me talk about this on my podcast, but that grind and that work was great for the foundation. When I started, I was single. I didn't really have any relationships. That was great. But now I'm married. I got a family, and I realized that um, your family has to, you got your faith, but family has to be the second priority over
Yeah.
yours, whatever you want to do, your job, yourself, all that. Because comes God first, then family, then whatever you want to do, right? And so I quickly realized that, and I think after marrying Carly, we've been married for almost a year now. I've done really well. So like I'll grind from 9 to 5, 10 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever. And but once 5:30 hits, I stop. I'm cooking. Carly comes home. We spend all evening together,
Yeah.
and that's how it is now. And like I'm not gonna, you know, um, I'm not gonna go out of that.
It's the
And
important stuff. It's right. It's priorities, like being
yeah,
responsible for your priorities and acknowledging that you need to shift things or when they do need to move around. And I strongly agree with faith and then family. If you weave those together, man, that's a heck of a basket, and that can carry
yeah,
anything. And
yeah,
anything else can fall in behind it. If you can bring your family and faith into it, or a hobby like a running company, or a podcast like we're trying to do. I literally kind of built this around the idea too when I was first starting this and going through some stuff that I was having a problem. I've went through school to try to pursue audio. I've done like been on radio stuff and all that. And something that I've ran into is I felt strongly that what if I get in with a media company or a company that needs someone to help us produce whatever this is, and it is not godly. It's not
mhm,
something that I agree with. I was like, oh man, like I'm not. What if I do all this? If I grind and get after it and put in this time and I build, work on my resume, I get in with a company and a strongly amount of that. I was either trying to get into something like audio post production or sound design for video games. Actually, also
yeah,
so all the people who make the sounds for guns or monsters and stuff in the video games, and I was trying to learn some coding too for that, and it was super hard. And the game industry is pretty toxic. I come to realize, and a lot of it is not from a godly place.
yeah,
And I just like I'm not. I'm gonna feel so bad. I'm not gonna like that if I get there and I thought this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, and it's always gonna be nagging at me like, man, these people, you're kind of help building this wrong foundation of this place or spreading a wrong word and things like that. And so I kept having an idea of trying to start like, well, won't you do it? Dip your toe in and try to, maybe if I can build like just a post production kind of thing with the focus on good, godly foundations
Yeah.
and for him and all that. And then that would probably be attractive to other people too. Like, voice actors or something. They're just like, well, I wanted to record here, but I don't really, they support this stuff or whatever it is. And then, so that's kind of the same field. It's funny with video games too. And then into this. So, man, I feel you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
having the priorities in line and doing all that. You were telling me before, that's awesome with the races. I was going to ask you about, cause I know you've got like the ultra championship stuff going on too, but how was that fire trail race was like a couple days ago?
Yeah. It's pretty much yesterday for me. So yeah, that night races are something else, man. My first all-nighter was last summer at the first Fire Trail Running Festival. It was my first ever time staying up all night, and
Oh man.
that went down yesterday, and it was great, man. We had twice the amount of people as the year before. We had live music, which was really nice. I had my buddy from Nashville, Tennessee, come, and he performed, and it was great.
Sweet.
It sounded great, man, and it was hot, humid, bro. We had people
Yes.
dropping,
Oh
DNFing because it was
no.
just so hot and humid, and it was a great race, man. So many people finished. We had, I think, if you run like the first ultra marathons, which is always like awesome because your first one's the one you're gonna remember forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was crazy. It was busy, dude. Aid station was getting slammed. I felt bad for our volunteer.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
We had, dude, volunteers is a struggle. That's something I've been working on. We did better this round. But like for our races, like we struggle to get volunteers like a lot. Like we can get a few and that works fine.
A
But when
question
it
I
comes to
have,
like,
I was going to
go
ask
ahead.
that same thing is, just since you're mentioning it, is how do you view volunteers now that you're a race director versus when you were like, when you would run races? And I assume
Yeah.
you have a higher appreciation for them.
When I first started, dude, I mean, yeah, I was like 14, 15, 16. So I just kind of thought, oh, they're part of the club that puts us on, you know,
Right. Right. They're
thanks
just,
guys. I would run off and, like back then, like, um, yeah, I didn't really know what to think about them. But now I realize, like, no, like a lot of the volunteers are not really a part of the organization. They're people who say, hey, I'm gonna go from 2 to 8 a.m. and make peanut butter sandwiches, and and it's it's like a big dedication. Like these people, I had this one girl, or this one lady, she came out and ran the race, and then she woke up like 6, 7 hours later to come back out and pick up all the course markings. And I'm like people go through like mental and physical strain to put these races on, and they are being paid, like they truly are, because yeah, we give them race credits and you're like, oh, it's just race credits. But like, for example, one of my volunteers, she's come to a bunch of our races. She's gonna sign up for races in the future, and so by her volunteering, she got a free race entry, and now she just saved $100 that she would have spent. So she really made
right.
$100.
Right. That, yeah.
So you are making, you as a volunteer, you are getting paid for your compensation. But I think even more, you're getting, not only do you get benefits, but you're getting I feel like you're paying your due in a way, like as a human being, as a person. Whenever you go out and you do something and you volunteer when you don't have to, it gives you a sense of, I feel like, joy and fulfillment. And it's more than just like what you can get, but it's like, how can I serve other
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
And I mean, my first 2 years of race directing, I was a volunteer. Like I
That's a
didn't
good
pay
way to look
myself
at
the
it.
first
Yeah.
2 years, dude. I did not pay myself. Obviously, I am now because I just graduated. I have a family to support. We got bills to pay. But like when I first started, dude, I was a volunteer race director.
I didn't, that's a,
That's how a
wow.
lot of people
Yeah.
start.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. That's great. I know you have, which I like, I didn't think about this now. I don't know why, but that's something, it is fulfilling when you get to volunteer and like serve and you're kind
Yeah,
of in that community and those are your people, man. You want to help them out and it kind of fills you up in a different way. Um, if I can, man, I would love to come volunteer for the Noche. That's your, like in a few weeks, right?
yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
volunteering, I mean, it's 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 amazing. Like, as far as, like, whenever you're helping somebody out, like, I can't stress it enough to our volunteers, like, I feel like I can't thank them enough. Um, and I really do I truly mean that, like, I feel like I don't have enough words to say to fully explain or express to them how thankful I am for them, because if they weren't there, dude, I would have my hands tied, dude. I wouldn't be able to, or I wouldn't be able to put on a quality race, and that would cause these runners to not have a good experience. And
Right.
it causes them not to,
It reflects on
um,
you. Yeah.
well, yeah, but I think more importantly, it reflects on the runners, because that could be the difference between them finishing or not, and them running the farthest distance they've ever ran or not,
Oh, yes.
between
Yeah.
a volunteer being there or not. And so volunteers are just like, they're super helpful. And then obviously, like, it's not just like, oh, you come volunteer and that's it. You volunteer, you like, I give away race merch, like, or not race merch, but merch. Like, I got hats, all kinds of stuff. You can have, I'll give you one if you're volunteering. If you're um volunteering, yeah, you get your race credits. So you get to come out to come run a race, And yeah, dude, it's great.
It's a big deal. You're right, to say the least.
Yeah.
Uh, awesome, man. Let me see. And that's out in Junction, right? Coming on the 15th.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
that the Noche is pretty intense. It's an intense race as far as putting it on and running it. Like, for the participants, because it's super rocky, and I think it's harder than people expect. You get back for your third loop at 2 a.m. You're tired. There's not a lot of people out there. It's pitch black, and you don't want to go out for another third loop, for another 13-mile loop, and so it's extremely difficult because that last loop gets everybody. And, like, you're about to go up this giant hill. It's the biggest hill of the race. It's like, I want to say 300 foot or something. Um, and it's a difficult race. It's harder than people expect. It's super rocky. Like, the whole thing's not the whole thing, but
But
majority of it's rock,
rocky, rough.
slick rock. Like, you put your foot down and it could slide or something.
Dang. It takes
So,
focus and and durability to get through all that. I'm
yeah,
sure you're right. Dang. Yeah, that would I'll have to, because I know my again, Will, a buddy of mine,
yeah. Will,
he's going to that. And
yeah,
I was like, dude, that'd be a great experience, just again, just to be there and be around everybody. I'd love to help people. Um, yeah, if I can tag along with him and get the okay from work, because it is kind of soon coming up, but that'd be
yeah.
great. I could come with him and go volunteer up there. Um, sweet. So what, speaking of races and locations too, this is something I thought about. So as a race director in Texas, like, where is your favorite place to put on a race, or that you find is the most like funnest as for a race for other participants, or what do you look for when you're putting on a race that you're like, man, they're gonna love this. This is gonna be like awesome.
Yeah, so what I do is, whenever I'm looking for a place to put a race on, what I did 2 years ago is I took every state park and I put it on a sheet. I put, does it have a race there? Yes or no. If it has a race there, leave it alone. If it's a super small race, like a 5K or something, okay, I'll consider it. Um, does it have more than 4 to 4.5 miles of trail? Um, and then I have it, like, rated on scenery, 1 out of 10.
Nice.
And what I did is I took the scenery one. Like, if it checked all the other boxes, I would look at the scenery if it was just beautiful out there. And the trail system was, like, long. I look for, like, is it a beautiful trail system? Like, are the views scenic, and is are there long trails? And that's how I found, like, Noche, for example, which is 13-mile loop. It's beautiful out there. And so I called all these state parks, and I would, like, say, "Hey, can I put a race on here?" "Yes." "Okay, we'll go through with deciding the event application, everything like that." Um, and then I look for, to put on races that are uncommon, or there's not a lot of. So, like, one year I put on, like, the Texas Diablo Marathon, which we don't continue with anymore, but it was the hardest marathon in Texas. It was a trail marathon at the grasslands. It was all sand, and
Ooh.
it started at noon in July, and it was a challenge. And we put that race on. We don't do it anymore just for like safety reasons. Like our values have changed since then. I've matured a little bit since then, and so it's just it doesn't align with my values or anything like that. So we stopped doing that one. I would only put that on if I had the more resources too. Um, but I think the best race, my favorite race we put on is like the Chupacabra for sure, the Chupacabra 50, just because it's this weird mix of canyons, but also still like kind of North Texas scenery and greenery a little bit. And it's like red clay, so it's like the only place that I've seen that's red clay canyons with greenery.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, not just dirt
yeah,
everywhere.
and it's really pretty, and we've added a lot since like the beginning, and added to the quality of it. And that's kind of what these all are. Like each year, the races just get better and better quality. Like now we have two full aid stations at the Chupacabra 50, whereas before it was just like water stations, and one main aid station. But that's my favorite race, not only because it's my first race, but because it's a beautiful race. It's very well supported as far as like supplies go, and then you get, not a lot of people do this, but you get a buckle if you do the 50-mile race, and that's
Yeah,
super unique uh, for a race to do that, because not a lot of 50-mile races do that. So
right. It's not a buckle, just a usual a regular kind of metal in a shirt or something. Yeah,
yeah,
the buckles are sweet. They're
yeah,
definitely a medal is nice. Of course, you do it more or less for the mostly for the experience and to prove yourself and the discipline and everything. You're like, oh, cool. If I get a shirt, awesome, or a medal too, or like a buckle is, yeah, especially in Texas, right? That fits pretty well.
yeah,
um, oh gosh, what was I gonna? Do you get to? I see you on Strava. You cruising on your bicycle a lot.
yeah.
Do you get to run? I mean, when's the last race you did? Like not one of your own, but like do you do ultras or what? Like what kind of distance do you do with your training?
Yeah, so with college running, it's been difficult to do anything that I
Any?
wanted to do. Like by now, I probably would have run like a 100K or 100-mile race if it wasn't for cross country kind of being in the way. Um, but I 20, yeah, 20. I don't remember what year it was, but actually it just popped up on my Strava. But 2 years ago today, I ran my first 50K, which was in Fayetteville, and that one was pretty low key. The guy that marked it, it was like a free race, so he showed up at this guy's backyard and he marked it with like chalk and stuff.
Dude,
It's
yes.
called the Fayetteville 50K. It's on Facebook. Is how you find out about it. That's it. But it's a cool race. It's beautiful out there. So I ran that, and then after that, I got caught up with training and races. So I haven't been at it between that race and now. I haven't been able to, train up or get ready for a big race just because cross country was in the way. I just got done with that. I had an injury pop up, so I've been training on my bike. But I'm signed up for the Lake Murray 50K in October, and then I'm hoping to do Grasslands 50 miler in March, in which they added 100 miles to that one. But I'm hoping to do the Grasslands 50 um,
Sweet. I've heard
in
good things about
March,
the
and
Lake
kind of,
Murray.
yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I
Hmm.
was born in Ardmore, Oklahoma, so kind of, I don't know, it's kind of sentimental in a way, is like that's the place I was born, and I haven't ever been on the trails out there. And yeah, I lived
Oh,
in
right.
Gainesville, 45 minutes away. I never knew it was really there, but um, yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. So
Awesome, dude. Yeah, yeah, that sounds exciting. I'm doing my so this year is mostly what I've been digging back into running, and because I used to do a lot of like obstacle course racing, but I've always been like intrigued by like the distance when you hear somebody same rabbit hole you went down, like dang they ran over a marathon. Like what's that? Like oh 50 miles.
yeah,
This guy runs 100. What the heck is a Moab 240? Like are you? That's bananas. Like it's crazy, and
uh-huh.
which is very attractive to me, right? I love the self discipline and the people pushing themselves and using their bodies that they're given to this like to these crazy abilities and stuff. So I ran my first marathon this year as well. It was kind of for my I turned 30 this year and I want to get back into running. So it was like 2 days after my birthday. It was like perfect. So I've got my first night race is in like a month and a half. And it's a 54K, it's like 33 miles or something. That's gonna be my next longest distance and like night race. So I'm like, it's been a really really cool year and interesting. But I'm super excited for that. Uh, Definitely. And then night races are, especially now that it's getting hot, it's a good idea. All right, I've got a few. We can do like a lightning want to say lightning round, but some quick one or two A or B kind of questions here
Okay.
to round it out. I think will be fun and kind of pick your brain with. All right. So, are you uphill or a downhill guy?
I'm definitely uphill, and I do want to give a little explanation on this because it's great.
Okay.
I found that running, because I lived in Fayetteville where it's very hilly, and I found that running hills increases your breathing, and also makes you stronger. And so I ran the fastest ever 5K I've ran 2 months after just training in the hills, and it would be slow, 12 to 16 minute pace climbs up these things. So
Dang.
yeah,
But you definitely saw the benefits of it. And that's what I've heard too. Just find some hills and get after them, and it really helps you with your strength and everything.
once a week, not
Dang.
all the time. If you do it all the time, then you're gonna spend yourself.
Find an energy or injury quick, probably.
Yeah.
For fueling, are you going for like a gel or a chew kind of thing?
For fueling, I just do like solid whole foods. So like
You like solids?
UJ,
Yeah.
pickles, oranges, bananas. So
Really nice.
tea, black tea,
Say black
unsweet.
tea
So black unsweet, yeah, black unsweet
while
tea.
you're running or on your bike.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just for like the
interesting.
caffeine.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Oh,
Uh,
and for like electrolytes and stuff, I do body armor.
oh yeah, I like body armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hot weather or cold weather you prefer?
Cold for sure. Hot's miserable.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang, I think I almost put wind in here because I've kind of ran or like trained out in both. If it's not stupid hot or stupid cold, like I'll do it. But I really dislike wind, even if it's not a headwind. If it's like on the side, you can't like hear stuff if you're trying to listen to anything or be aware of your surroundings. And it's just like the wind is super aggravating to me.
I like the hot warm wind. Or
Yeah.
not, yeah. Yeah, the hot warm winds. Like that's why I like biking so much now, because it
Oh, you're
doesn't
like
feel as hot
cool.
as it is.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
creating a breeze. Uh, Early morning or like a late evening run?
I like getting stuff done early, so that way you have the rest of the day to chill and
Check
get
the
stuff
box
done.
off early and be like, I did it. Way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
All right. This one doesn't really matter. Well, I wrote it down anyway. For as far as like a hydration vest or brand, Ultimate Direction or Nathan?
I personally, I got Patagonia vest, which is pretty unique.
It is
But
actually.
actually, I do got a handheld water bottle that's a Nathan. Yeah, I think Nathan's might be the better out of the two. So
Interesting. And that's what I just like kind of thought about. And I was like, I'll throw a brand in here. All right. And a near and dear to my heart. You more of a cake guy or like pie?
pie.
Dude, yes. All right, brother.
Yeah.
Pie's where it's at for sure. Dude, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing your time and giving me all this great information here. Sharing stories with us on here, being a little vulnerable, talking about God and everything, and how you started up your business. This is super interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to share this with everybody else, man. Is there anything else you want to say or let people know where they can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah. First off, I appreciate it. I don't get a lot of. I don't think I've been on somebody's else's podcast since like high school, so like 3 years. So I really appreciate you like reaching out and having me on. It's been super cool because I don't
Yeah.
always get to talk about everything like that. So, um, but yeah, I mean, as far as me personally, it's Briston Rains on Instagram, Facebook. The Texas Outlaw Running, it's on everything. You could type it in the Google, it'll pop up.
Yep.
Texas Outlaw Running, yeah.
Awesome. I will say that hat. I see you're wearing one of those the newer ones like the leather patch. Those are
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah,
You have an older one that's got like kind of the logo, but like the side profile of somebody running in the desert, and it's like black and red and orange and all that.
yeah. You like
But
that
the
one?
patch, those are sick too. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
dude, like he's got it
I might
figured
need to
out.
get those remade. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we just went out of stock on those. But funny story about that. That's actually a picture of me from whenever I was an outline of me from whenever I was running in high school. And so my friend was biking beside me and he took a picture of me and
Oh,
it was a side
sweet.
profile. And so I went and threw it into like Adobe Illustrator and like drew around it.
Made the
And
like profile of it.
yeah, and a lot of stuff you'll see with Texas Outlaw I designed and made as far as like the art, because I can do that stuff. So
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
Fire Char Running Festival, for example, like the logo and stuff, like I made that.
Logo's
And
sweet. Yeah, it's like a little
yeah,
fire, but like twisty kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
So I'll make a lot of that stuff, but sometimes I outsource. Like this logo we got right now, this Texas Outlaw Running Company logo, with the red and the guy running it. That I got that a few years ago from a guy on like Fiverr for like $15 or something.
Fiverr's magic, yeah.
Yeah.
A place of wonder for sure, man. Yeah, thank you so much, man. Bless you, bless your wife, bless y'all's relationship and your business, man. Thank you for doing what you're doing, buddy. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you out there on Noche.
Dude, yeah, I'll see you soon at something, I'm sure. So.
Definitely. All right, bud.
All right, thanks, man.